Hi, and welcome to day 3 of Writers Week 30. We are so excited to have you all here. Some quick thank yous, and then I'm going to tell you about the presenters that we have on stage today. First of all, as always, a huge thank you to the boosters who help make this possible. If you have parents at home who are members of the Booster Club, please go home and thank them for making this event possible. A reminder that tonight on this stage at 7 p.m., we are going to have a live taping of the podcast Just Break Up. If you were lucky enough to be here third or fourth hour, you got to hear the hosts of that podcast present, and they will be recording tonight at 7 o'clock in the auditorium. So if you can be here, that would be awesome. And now, what do we have for you today? So as you all know, it is Writers Week 30. When Writers Week started in 1995, we had no idea the stories that would fill this auditorium over these last 30 years. We are so lucky to have a school, a student body, presenters, staff, tech crew who support this year after year and allow it to be as successful as it has for the last 30 years. You, the students, are the main reasons that Writers Week continues to be so wonderful for so many years across so many different eras. This hour, our guests are Friend graduates. They were once like you, sitting in the auditorium, and in this case, both of today's presenters were also sharing their work on the Writers Week stage as students. As a way to have some fun with the different eras of Writers Week, each Friend grad was given the prompt to frame their presentation about a different Taylor Swift song. She is Time Magazine's Person of the Year, so we needed to give that a little bit of credit. Their presentations are not necessarily going to be about a song, but maybe they'll be talking about a particularly cruel summer or a time in their life that they were fearless. Hopefully you get it. So today we have Jennifer Bora, who is a high school English teacher at St. Charles East High School. And during her time at Friend, she was a writer for the Viking Log. So she will be here sharing her writing with us today. And then we have Friend graduate Madison Hersey, who is currently in her final year of law school at Northwestern, and will be sharing how her journey as a creative writer makes sense with that career. So please give a warm welcome to Jennifer Bora.
Welcome to New York. I'm going to tell you an epic tale, but before we can begin, some exposition is in order. I'll start with the first friend I made in this building. I came to Friend from a school outside the District 15 public school system. As a result, I could count on one hand the number of people I knew when I started freshman year. On my first day of school, I remember feeling increasingly agitated as the end of Spanish class arrived, because I had PE next, and I didn't know how to get to the gym. I started to seek out anyone who was heading that way, hoping I could secure a travel buddy. I don't remember exactly what we said to one another, but I recall that her eyes seemed friendly when they met my own. Perhaps it was fate, or perhaps it was merely the fact that our faces moved through the world at the same height. But whatever the reason, she stood out to me. Unhei and I have been close ever since we walked to gym together on our first day at Friend. Though our closeness hasn't always meant proximity. 18 years later, Unhei lives in Manhattan. When Unhei first mentioned me visiting her, my initial reaction was that it was a sweet but impossible idea. I literally get anxious going to the grocery store. How on earth was I supposed to get to New York by myself? At work, I exist in a world of good morning, and it's good to see you, and let me know if you need any help. My work persona contrasts, however, with the at-home version of myself, like a highlighter yellow button on a black cardigan. An introvert whose unstructured time verges on hermithood, I am intensely uneasy when I encounter things like phone calls, checkout counters run by living human beings, and unexpected knocks at the door. At work, I'm everything I can be for everyone who needs me. But at home, there's nothing I long for more than the easing of expectations. Honestly, I'm most in my element at night, when the rest of the world has gone to sleep. I'm an absolute master at staying up late reading, frequently to the detriment of my waking hour productivity. I can't count the number of times I sink into a story on a summer evening and come blinking back to reality when I realize that the light crawling its way across my face is the sunrise. Cuddled up with a book is my happy place, and nights I can indulge without a morning alarm looming are my greatest wish. Reading long into the night is when I'm most myself. Eunhae is quite possibly the bravest person I've ever met. She's a neurologist, a brain doctor. She takes care of the system in our bodies that defines the divide between life and death more so than any other. Having power over that is a big deal. I don't even like driving because I just like the responsibility of having lives in my hands. And Eunhae, on the other end of the spectrum, decided to become the person in charge when someone has a stroke. She's incredible. Against all odds, this past summer, I did go visit Eunhae in New York City. This trip represented a lot of firsts for me. My first time flying alone, my first time taking an Uber alone, really my first time navigating an unfamiliar city without a parent, instructor, or travel companion. Even though I would be traveling alone, I had support. My dad sat me down with a video advertising the updated airport, pointing out where I would be when I got off the plane, which direction I could walk to find my Uber, and what modern art pieces I could use as checkpoints along the way. We even pre-scheduled the car that would take me from LaGuardia to Eunhae's apartment so that all I had to do was disembark and walk to the right spot. My dad dropped me off at the airport and made sure I successfully navigated security. So the real test of my bravery began when I touched down on the other side. A cyclone of anxiety shadowed my walk from the plane. I barely saw the signs proclaiming, "Welcome to New York," focused as I was on locating the visual cues and signs leading in the right direction that my dad had pointed out the night before. Though everything matched the virtual tour, my head raced with thoughts of getting this far only to fail to reach Eunhae. That wouldn't actually have happened. Eunhae was there on the other end of the phone to greet me when I landed, and she would have helped rescue me if I gave up and had a meltdown in the airport. But I knew she believed I could do it, and I didn't want to disappoint her. Luckily, my bravery paid off, and none of my fears came to pass. I found the Uber area, found the car with the right license plate, and asked the vital questions. "What's your name?" It was Edwin. Now, Edwin, this is weird, but what's my name? I got the answers that signaled it was safe to enter the vehicle. It didn't really hit me that I was in New York City until we were a little ways beyond the airport. I was frantically sharing my ride info with my dad at his request, I suppose in case Edwin decided to murder me anyway. I don't really know what my dad thought he could do about that from Chicago, but it was nice to feel looked out for. By the time I glanced up properly, finally calm enough to feel curious, I was surrounded by buildings and water and so much traffic. At last, Edwin dropped me off and Eunhae was there, tangible and real and right in front of me. There's nothing quite like enduring a journey you feared, a journey you weren't entirely sure you could make, and finally stumbling into the embrace of the person who has been your destination. Waves of accomplishment and relief rolled through me as Eunhae led the way to her apartment. She had set up a bed and had slippers for me to borrow, welcoming me to New York in a way that was both more familiar and more formal than the impersonal signs at the airport. And the view from Eunhae's apartment was unreal. I'd seen it via FaceTime over the years, but the real thing put the pictures previously in my head to shame. The cars below looked like toys on a little kid's Hot Wheels track, and I could see the Empire State Building in the distance. In the coming days, I would see that view glittering in the dark, an urban, starry night. I would also see it in the rain, lightning-pierced gray with thunder and echoing Balrog in a Moria mine. Eunhae spent the rest of the afternoon introducing me to some of her favorite places. We saw parks and libraries, yes, plural libraries. Turns out the old and the new one are right across the street from one another. The old one is reminiscent of Hogwarts, all soaring ceilings and stone, standing as a tribute to the city's rich history. The new one is no less impressive, a center of learning and literature that accounts for the tastes of a modern audience. The multi-story windows of the new library were also emblazoned with giant Spider-Man decals, allowing me to cross See an Avenger off my New York bucket list. That evening, after returning home full of Korean food and stand-up comedy, we were thrown a heck of a curveball. The thing about people who save lives is that they actually have to go out and do the life-saving, and they don't always get to decide when exactly that should take place. Long story short, Eunhae got called in. She would have to be up with the dawn and head into battle against the myriad of neurological issues facing the citizens of New York. This, for me, meant an unexpected day on my own. Now, I could have taken the easy route, staying inside Eunhae's apartment and spending a lovely day reading, but I felt like I should show Eunhae that her being at work was not going to ruin my trip. I could tell she'd been feeling bad about having to leave. She had secured me a ticket to the Whitney Museum of American Art, a modern art museum that she highly recommended. All I had to do was be brave and adventurous. Here's a tip. Museums are actually the greatest if you're in a new city and you're not very adventurous. Museum websites are all about discovery and exploration, and yeah, sure, but the reality is that you'll have coffee, food, bathrooms, color-coded maps, stuff to see, maybe even a gift shop, all under one roof, punctuated by information desks and guides if you run into issues. Museums have plenty of benches to take a break, and if you get truly overwhelmed, most museums have spots where you can just stare at a wall and reset for a bit, and not very many people would question your sanity. Whitney Museum of American Art has a wonderful series of balconies from which visitors can survey the city. In the very distance, I could just make out the Statue of Liberty. But below me, I noticed something that stood out. The High Line, an abandoned, elevated railroad that the city had converted into a park. Eunhae had mentioned it the night before as an option for us to visit if we'd had our planned day together. After leaving the art museum, I found the entrance to the beautiful railroad turned prairie walk. Side note, I like to raise butterflies. In fact, my family babysat several caterpillars while I was away. I was pleased to find many of the same plants and pollinators that greet me on my afternoon walks back home. Queen Anne's lace, black-eyed Susan, red admiral butterflies, and loads of bumble and honeybees. Most New York City tourists are like, Statue of Liberty. I'm like, bees. Seriously though, for me, seeing the flowers and insects I recognize so far away from home is incredibly reassuring, like the familiar face of a friend in the crowd. Since my friend was called away to be the kind of hero others only cosplay, the bees would have to do, and do they did. That night, I think I had like 5 pictures of me touring the city to show Eunhae and like 30 of bees. After returning to Eunhae's apartment and confirming that she was still out saving lives, I received my first ever Uber Eats order from a friendly man riding a bicycle. As I ate, I watched the clock. Eunhae and I had tickets to Sweeney Todd with Josh Groban on Broadway. Eunhae said that it was likely she could get away in time, but that was the absolute latest I should wait before going on my own, 7:30. She made me promise I would go. At 7:30, I scheduled a ride. Watching fog fill the streets of London on a New York stage with an empty seat beside me, I thought about how lucky we are to have our medical professionals. All those people Eunhae helped that day had no idea what she was forced to give up in order to be there for them. I truly hope they appreciated her presence and her attention. Eunhae and I had more time together the next day, and we started the day with a leisurely brunch, and armed with the new understanding that I do okay on my own in museums, I took a brief tour of the American Museum of Natural History while Eunhae had a few hours of clinic. She was back in time for that evening when we saw a French performance of Notre Dame de Paris, there's no way I said that right, with English subtitles. The singing and dancing were awe-inspiring, but it turns out that the original story is more problematic than the Disney movie we vaguely remembered. The final morning of my stay in New York, we visited the Met Vincent van Gogh's works all centered around his apparent obsession with cypress trees. Our final meal together in Manhattan was a whimsical afternoon in an Alice in Wonderland themed tea house. And afterwards, Unhei insisted that a proper New York City visit was woefully incomplete without a subway trip, so on we went. Though the weather was rainy as we made our way back to Unhei's place, I didn't consider that it would have any impact on my flight home. So I was surprised when I received the notification that it was delayed. The second notification was less surprising. By the third time the flight was pushed back, I started to worry, but I was still naive enough to be taken aback when I got word the flight had been canceled. Now, normally I'd welcome the possibility of more time with Unhei, but she wasn't going to be there that weekend. If I couldn't get out of New York before she left, I would be all alone. I think Unhei could tell the threads of my bravado were beginning to unravel at this point. She made sure I knew I was welcome at her place, even in her absence, and that offer made all the difference in the world. At this point, all I had was a standby ticket for a plane that might also get canceled, and my way home was far from assured. I spent some time texting back and forth with my family, deliberating. I could leave for the airport and risk wasting my time and money only to not get on a plane, or I could wait until I had an actual ticket and risk missing my chance to fly home that night. Eventually, we determined that I should show up anyway and just see what happened. In spite of my canceled flight, I was flying high when I arrived at LaGuardia. Taking an Uber was routine, the once intimidating airport was familiar, and I was basking in the triumph of my ability to face uncertainty. My mood slipped a bit, however, when I started to see that showing up with a standby ticket and hoping to get on a plane might involve a level of assertiveness that I hadn't quite planned on. It turned out, when my family said, "show up anyway," they didn't just mean wait and see. They meant for me to engage in more of an ask to speak to the manager approach that I would rather melt into the floor than participate in. To be fair, they tried to help me. My parents reached out to my sister's fiance, who flies often, to see if there was a workaround for a standby situation. My dad and I waited on hold in a three-way call with United, hoping to speak to a human and demand a ticket home. In spite of my discomfort, I tried as well. I got in line to speak to an employee, seeking information on when I could expect to find out if I would have a seat on the plane and if it would even take off. And when that first employee said my best bet was to take a train instead, I got right back in line to talk to a different employee. Hours passed and it became clear. Being brave and assertive wasn't getting me on that plane. But as the time flowed steadily towards the deeper hours of night, and I watched fellow would-be plane passengers bail, leaving the airport for their homes or hotel, I realized something incredible. It was a waiting game. I didn't have to be brave or assertive. I just had to stay up later than everybody else. This I had been training for my entire life. I had 2 books in my backpack and a sudden wave of enthusiasm for my situation. With a fortifying sip of my latte, I tucked into a book called Ghostland, an American history in haunted places, and ignored the chaos unfolding around me. When I was a kid, I always assumed that somewhere along the path to being an adult, I would pick up the skills I felt were implied by the title. And looking back, in many ways I have. My trip to New York City pushed me to develop new skills, yes, but it also shone a light on my ability to adapt to uncertainty and last-minute change in a way I couldn't have as a child. However, the most powerful lesson I took from my New York trip wasn't the skills I gained or the ones I discovered. It was realizing the value of skills I had long known were among my strengths that I had just never considered could be useful in the adult world. 8-year-old Jennifer, squinting at her book in the light of a dying flashlight and slowly suffocating beneath the weight of a blanket heavy enough to conceal the light, would have been just as capable of waiting on standby in an airport at 1 in the morning as 31-year-old Jennifer was. She too would have been able to hold on long enough into the evening for the weak-willed to vacate the airport, opening up a seat for her on the plane. She would have been content to sit and read while the plane arrived with a timed-out out flight crew, while the airport called a crew to take over, while pilots who were meant to be on a flight that had been canceled volunteered to step in and get us on our way sooner. All I needed to be to stay up until finally landing at O'Hare at 3:30 a.m., 8 hours later than expected, was myself. Some of you are freshmen, and some of you are seniors. Some of you are ready to take on the adventures that come with adulthood, and some of you feel you'll never be ready. As your teachers and family have impressed upon you, there is a lot to learn before you head off on your own. But don't discourage the things you're good at today, the things you've been good at forever, even if they're not likely to make it onto your resume. After all, the aspect of my personality that most often interferes with what I grew up viewing as adult skills was the part of myself that saved the day when nothing else made a difference. In reality, the only thing that makes a skill an adult skill is that there are adults with that skill. By virtue of your continued existence, that will be true for all of your skills. I can't tell you exactly how your ability to dominate video games, knit a scarf, or sing every Taylor Swift song from memory is going to help you in the future, but I can tell you that the things you're good at right now, as you are today, matter. Don't disregard them. There are going to be times in life when you're called on to be something you don't really feel like you are yet. But even in those times, the actual best thing you can be is yourself. Thank you, Fremd students, for listening, Fremd faculty for inviting me, my St. Charles East students for sharing me with you today, and Unhei for being the kind of friend who's always worth venturing outside my comfort zone.
Fact, you are born with 300 bones. By the time you are an adult, you will have 206. We are born clean slates, without preconceptions, without pretenses. We have to learn how to hate. As we age, social norms become the friends that seem so good for you at first. A good time, a good laugh, a good party, but end up leaving you with less than you started with. How easily our bones disintegrate. How easily we lose parts of ourselves as we grow. How often we are expanding as our insides are shrinking. Fact. The average person spends 2 weeks of their lifetime waiting for the light to change from red to green. The average person spends more time waiting for others to tell them it's okay instead of deciding for themselves. It takes us too long to take our foot off the brake pedal. We are just waiting around for someone else to do it for us. Fact. It takes more calories to eat a piece of celery than the celery has in it. In other words, it takes more calories to care about how many calories you're eating than to just eat the damn thing. We are obsessed with nutrition labels. Calorie counts, weight loss pills, fad diets. We are more concerned with telling ourselves no, denying ourselves a guilty pleasure. We are too afraid to indulge ourselves in this life. We don't even realize that refusing to eat one piece of chocolate is not nearly the same thing as taking care of this body. Fact. A broken clock is right 2 times a day. This means when you are broken, you still have at least 2 instances of hope, 2 rights, 2 opportunities. This means when you are broken, you are not entirely broken. Fact. Like fingerprints, everyone's tongue is different. When you speak, you may use your words like a whiplash or a hug, an uppercut or a band-aid, a knife in the back or a bright-eyed smile. You have the power to use your words differently than anyone else. Use them with honor. Use them with courage. Use them wisely. Fact. The silkworm consumes 86,000 times its own weight in 56 days. We consume more than we can handle every single day. Fact, we overwhelm ourselves. Fact, we are never given more than we can handle, but it is also a fact that sometimes we give more than we can handle to ourselves. Fact, human thigh bones are stronger than concrete, and 1/4 of bones are located in the feet. Sometimes we forget how strong our foundation is. Sometimes we forget just how great, just how wonderful we can be. Thank you. Please feel free to not clap after every poem, because I do have some more for you. And I will just accept it in spirit until the end. So that is the same poem, completely unedited, completely unchanged, that I read at Writers Week in 2015 when I was a senior. And part of the reason why I wanted to start with that is because of the theme, the era's theme. So took it real broad, big picture, and just thought it would be cool for you all to hear what I was up to then, what I was thinking about then, what I was writing about then, and read some more recent poetry for you, and hopefully that will give you insight into how I've grown as a writer. I was reading this poem back and talking to Miss Braverman about it, and I was like, I don't actually think that poem was that good. She was like, well, it's probably better than you think it is, and also, who cares? Which, be yourself, who cares? It was literally 9 years ago, so I feel like it's okay for my poetry to have gotten better. Hopefully you enjoyed it anyway. So, I think Ms. Bergman mentioned that I'm a law student, and I'm way closer to being done with the school part and close to being the lawyer part that I'm ready for, but I also thought I would tell you guys a little bit about how my identity as a creative writer and my identity as a law student, future lawyer, etc., comes together for me. But I'll do that in a second, and right now I'm going to read you a couple of poems that fall under the umbrella of Mirrorball, and I will say, for any Taylor Swift, actually I guess anybody, Taylor Swift fans or non-Taylor Swift fans, I heard that song for the first time this morning, and one of my best friends texted me and said, I think that's like the perfect song to be the theme for this group of poetry, and I was like, cool, but it's a decent song, so hopefully you like it. Hopefully you like what was inspired by it. This one is called Take Back Apologies, and in the interest of looping back to the era's theme, I wrote this on April 3rd, 2021. I take back the times I folded in on myself like an origami apology, a paper butterfly with clipped wings. I take back the times I unwrapped the gift box of my voice only to retie the bow of my lips and set myself back on the shelf. I take back the times I turned down the radio of my smile, rolled up the windows, and shut out the summertime. I take back the times I shrunk myself to fit in the palm of someone else's hands. And I also am now known to my friends as the Take Back Apology friend, because I probably say upwards of 20 times a day, I tell the people in my life to stop apologizing to me. So if I could leave you the message from that one, stop apologizing for things that aren't your fault. Stop apologizing when you don't owe the person an apology. And apologize when you do. This one is untitled. I went through an era in my life where I just decided all poems should be untitled because you should be surprised when you get to the end, or like while you're going through it, which is fine if it serves your creative purpose, but it's silly to do for all of them. Because sometimes the title is poetry itself. But this one isn't. I set up my shame on a plastic folding table and staked yard sale in the grass on my front lawn. I imagine this is how a hustler might feel, selling counterfeit makeup and cheap jewelry. I dress it up with pretty signs made of copied paper and bubble letters. A carnival with funnel cakes and corn dogs and Ferris wheels and miniature horses and bumper cars, and I am the ride no one wants to get on. I am at the bottom of a pyramid scheme I am just now looking up at. I am selling a product no one would ever buy. I carve a smile out of the corners of my mouth and give a sales pitch to the street I grew up on. This must just be one of those trinkets I will always keep on the shelf. can't bring myself to throw it away. I tuck it away in one of the pockets of my heart and hope it gets lost in the laundry. All right, that's it for the mirror ball. I didn't mean that you have to clap, but thank you. How much time do I have left? Cool. I have absolutely no concept of space and time. It's the ADHD, so if you have that too, I get it. So I would probably ask you that 3 more times. So, at school, I am a member of the trial team, which exists in high schools. Do you have mock trial? So, high schools, colleges, and law schools all have mock trial teams. Not every single one, but rather it exists at every level. And I was on the debate team here at Friend when I was still going here. And I joined the mock trial team in law school because I am like the stereotype of when you're like, oh my God, you should be a lawyer, all you like to do is argue. That's me. I fulfilled it, and I don't know if I feel shame or pride or both, but that's what happened. And part of what I wanted to do was be in a courtroom. I wanted it to look like the actual real life version of like courtroom movies and stuff like that. And now I can't watch them anymore. Like, I literally can't watch them anymore. They're painful for me. But the point of this, linking up with creative writing, is that as a mock trial advocate, but also as an actual legal advocate in the future, there are 2 things that are super important when you're preparing for a trial, any kind of trial. And those are theme and theory. Theory is your theory of the case. How are you going to explain what happened, why, and what you want? If you're a prosecutor, you want a conviction and whatever you're asking for after that. If you're in civil court, you are asking probably for money, some damages from somebody who harmed you, but either way, you need a theory to link together why the jury or the judge should take your story of events as what they were. Your theme is what you use to weave your story together through that. So I never thought about the way that my identity or hobby as a creative writer would extend to any career other than being a writer. And I was very pleasantly surprised to learn that there is so much creativity to be had and to be inserted even in places where it doesn't seem like it's there. It can be your job to put it there and to insert some creativity into whatever you're doing. And so I have a lot of fun doing that. If you've ever seen like a courtroom drama kind of movie, you've probably seen someone get up and give an opening statement or get up and give a closing argument, and those are really the places where you get to weave in a lot of creativity, and it's a lot of fun. So if you have questions about stuff like that, you can always get in touch with me later. I'm happy to talk about any potential future lawyers in the room. And the next set is inspired by Cruel Summer. Also wrote this in 2021. And this poem is after another poem, and that poem is My 18-month-old Daughter Talks to the Rain as the Amazon Burns by Dante DeStefano. And, like the other, I decided that this didn't need a title. But if I had to go back, I don't know what I would title it anyway. So, maybe that one's okay. Little black boy hears an Independence Day celebration in the sky that he can't see. He calls them fireworks as he giggles through baby teeth. He doesn't know pistol from revolver or shotgun from rifle. He greets sparks from his mother's cigarette like it is a light show at Christmas. He doesn't know bomb from threat, can't say mass shooting, doesn't know gun show, loophole, black market, walk into a Walmart and buy off the shelf. Does not fear a menace he cannot name, only knows the sound of a helium balloon popping and a vacuum rolling over a paper clip and the takeoff of the airplane at the airport. He does not know the rattle of a bullet hurled toward a man that could be his father, uncle, brother, teacher, cousin, friend. His tiny body shakes with the laughter of a parade, a horse race, a superhero movie, the accidental breaking of a piano string, an 84 Mustang in the alley behind the house, as soon as you would love the sounds of your neighborhood saying hi. Hi. I'm gonna have another Chicago summer one. This one is much shorter. Chicago summer is a smoking gun. This is not a metaphor. They are identical twins ruled by Mercury. Bodies hit pavement and drumbeat rhythm in the background. We pass these ballads down by mouth and shock, but not surprise. Our memories are not built to retain all of this tragedy. Archive news stories with headlines that leave phantom gunshot wounds. Disregard feedback we do not like and rewrite history to suit ourselves. But we cannot tear out this root rock without the original draft. Okay, next group, next sub-theme. So I asked Mrs. Braverman, 8. I forgot my glasses. Thank you. I asked Mrs. Braverman if she thought I should even read this poem. And I said that the reason I wasn't sure is because it felt like the kind of poem that like it makes high schoolers hate the poetry unit because it's abstract and you're like, I don't know what the author meant. It doesn't say anything that means anything to me. I loved poetry unit, but I laughed at myself as I realized how recently I wrote a poem that like literally is just like what my classmates at the time sometimes felt about it. But one thing I can tell you is that I think you'll come to appreciate with age, even if it's not poetry, other kinds of creative writing that may not, the message may not be clear to you what the author wanted you to know, but what you got from it is just as important. What you thought it said was just as important, and in my opinion, more important than what the author meant. So this one is from my mother. I wrote it for her for Mother's Day last year in 2023, and it's abstract, so just turn that part of your brain on for this. They say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I think of the seed inside the one which falls first. The one which may, after discovering its new bed of freshly cut grass, offer the potential of seedlings. They do not say anything about the tree that bears no fruit even after 10 years of tenderly tilling the soil. The fruitless tree waves to the sugar maple, hardy in the snow and happy in the shade, eager to be tapped for sweet simplicity. And so the maple tree waits, and the apple tree watches, and the caterpillar becomes watercolor and wings. Beyond them, 150 feet of canopy divulges 1,000 years of secrets kept by the oak tree. The one we know to precede time itself, a source of sustenance, a vessel of healing, a boat to carry your secrets on the way to a destination you can name, but whose route is uncharted. The base of the pit where a house of embers burns a home for cold hands. And so I am reminded that the acorn is already the oak tree. Everything I need is already within me. Everything I need, carried by the wind to the flower that nurtured the seed of me. The acorn is already the oak tree, which is to say that everything I am and everything I need, you have already placed within me. I'm glad that I read it. So I didn't know how much time I was going to have to get through everything. So I'm going to run with one because I'm going to guess I have like 5 minutes. Okay. This one, these two, to probably wrap up with. I Knew You Were Trouble. I did title this one, and actually I got in the habit right after I decided that untitling poems wasn't actually that cool. I started giving my poems 2 titles because my favorite poets, including Sierra de Mulder, do that sometimes, and I was like, I want to try that out, and then I thought it was better than leaving them untitled. So the 2 titles to this first one is How to Stay Safe in the Wild, or I Know It Will Hurt Me, but I Make It Sound Sweet. Also, I almost never rhyme in my poems, and this one rhymes. I cannot think of a single other one I've ever done that in, but it's a little fun fact for you. Also, 2023. They're soft and smooth edges, Their leaflets in threes, a mistake for blackberries, a poison oak leaf, a kiss of death hidden, a story incomplete, a hope for sweet fruit, where venom's replete. I offer a smile, I breathe in the green. I think I found gold, but guilt I don't see. I lean in to look closer. I've been fooled by its youth. Yet I go on denying what I know to be true. I admire the ivy, savor its sweet. I shut my eyes firmly and force my reprieve. These smooth and soft edges, these leaflets in threes, I insist there are berries among poisonous trees. If you don't know what a poison oak leaf looks like, or the leaves that grow around blackberries, you should look it up because they look pretty similar. And I will end with one called Cascade Canyon. That one goes back to December of 2022. The first snowfall over Cascade Canyon. Oh, can you just like gentle wave if you're embarrassed by like big waving, which I get it, I used to be too. If you've ever been to the Grand Tetons in Wyoming. Cool. That's way more than I expected. That's so fun. This is called Cascade Canyon. That is a trail at Grand Tetons. The first snowfall over Cascade Canyon is gentle and slow. You can see my thoughts in the snowflakes, one at a time. Gravity is waiting at the end of the aisle as the clouds give each one away at the altar. This place untouched by every man but me. I thought I should make a snow angel for whoever follows behind. I mulled over the idea as I walked toward the side of the mountain, plucking petals off the flower of my uncertainty. I should not. I wondered if the snow would avalanche at the thought of my touch, or if it would return my affection. I began to lie down at an angle that suggests the slope was waiting for me. I sweep my arms above my head and wonder if somebody is watching me. If somebody is watching me watch my thoughts fall from the sky. I lift my head and glance over my shoulder. I can't see my snow angel from here, but I can see its shadow. Thank you for listening. It was a pleasure. It was weird to be back here for the first time in 9 years, but it was very enjoyable, and thank you very much.